Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fabcast Episode 4. First off, I'd like to introduce you to our Fabcast, Carlo Hindian, our resident storyteller, photographer, and videographer, and Jamie Mayer, our fabulous thought leader and expert in the promotional marketing space. With the Olympics around the corner, we're reminded that the world's best teams aren't defined by individual talent alone. They're shaped through practice, trust, shared rituals, moments of pressure, and collaboration. At Fabulist, we believe shared symbols and thoughtfully designed promo help turn individuals into a united force. Today, we welcome a special guest, Joanne Modafferi. With over 30 years of experience in the HR corporate space, Joanne knows a thing or two about building teams, from recruiting to retaining, motivating to rewarding, and all things in between. Welcome, Joanne, and thanks so much for joining us here today.
Thanks for inviting me, Lori, and hi, Carlo and Jamie. Have a total of 30 years experience in HR. I was 5 years with Abbott Labs, and I moved on to Quadra Chemicals, where I became the International Director of HR. And that's really where I cut my teeth on all things HR and employee engagement. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Today, Jamie will take the lead and kick off the conversation. I know he's got a few questions, and I'm going to just hand it over to you, Jamie. Take it away.
Yeah, this is where it gets dangerous and I start running with scissors, Joanne, so forgive me. Well, so hey, Abbott, we have something in common.
Okay.
So Abbott for years was a client of mine in the US. We work primarily with the team in Illinois.
Yes, so did I.
Yeah, okay. And then just in the pharmaceutical space, like I started my career at J&J.
Okay.
And working through the biotech side and the pharma side, but I was always on supporting the brand managers with promotion.
Right.
And so I never really got the opportunity to engage with HR in terms of building programs around the culture or the brand or employees. And so it's really interesting now finally to be able to ask an HR professional about teamwork.
Right.
And so this was really kind of the topic of our conversation was what role and because I think most people think HR is administrative and I think it's the center of culture. I wanted to get your take on that as it relates to when you have, a bunch of C-level executives who maybe aren't happy with results and they say, we got to be a better team. Does that end up falling on HR a lot of the times? And just how difficult is that request? And so I'll just let you kind of riff from there.
That's, without going into a lot of history, that was the reason why I moved away from Abbott, which was a huge administrative, bureaucratic, meat grinding machine. And I moved to Quadra which is a privately owned sales and marketing company, distributor. International distributor. And we started with 99 employees. I left 25 years later with 500, just under 500. And why I chose them was exactly addressing your point. They were, because they're a sales and marketing company, the employees and employee engagement was crucial. We didn't make anything. So it was all about how we interfaced with our customers, with our suppliers, and with each other. So people first philosophy became central and crucial, and it was supported by our C-levels, who really understood and believed that we had to do this in order to give excellence to our customers and our partners.
So you just summarized that really eloquently and simply, but I think hidden in there was a phrase that we've heard a lot, which is people first.
Yep.
And it's truly that simple, right? And it's that hard.
Exactly. Very hard. Very, very hard. And got harder as we grew.
And do you think it's because when people say, people first, intuitively they think they know what that means, but in all practicality, they don't really know what it takes to be people first all the time on an ongoing basis. And everyone starts with all best intentions, people first, we're a big team. And then when things start going sideways, maybe it's not a lack of resilience, because you'll hear that too. Oh, we're just not as resilient. We need to be more resilient. But it's really maybe not everyone is clearly aligned or deeply understanding what it specifically means to be people first at Quadra versus being people first somewhere else. Does that make sense?
It makes absolute sense. And those were our specific challenges as we grew. But also, there were always dynamic, conflicting priorities. We were sales and marketing. So at
Right.
one point, our sales team were viewed as better than our support team because, well, you're just support, you're just, you can come in at 9 to 5 and we're the guys that are out on the road and doing the hard stuff. And we had to help the team, the whole team, understand that no, everybody is an integral part of our goals and our objectives. And we tried to do that tried to help people understand that in different ways. And one of the ways was identifying with our people what are our core values that we all share. Among them was first our people first, and that everybody has a purpose in the organization, regardless of whether you're a product manager, you're a VP, you're a forklift driver. You all participate in a larger purpose, and helping people understand that they have a personal growth path if that's what they want. So it's being sincere and clear about those two things. Other values were safety, because we were in the chemical industry realm, collaboration with our partners. And if you can imagine a triangle, depending on the day or the moment, whoever was on top could be our people, could be our suppliers, could be our customers, and that we had to work in a collaborative environment. Caring was also one of our core values about our personal well-being for each other. So we gave people a common ground in terms of acting, behaving through our core values. And also we were very clear. Every year we would have a sales conference with our sales and marketing team. We'd pick a nice venue. We'd invite the whole sales and marketing team, and we'd share what our strategic objectives were for that year to make sure everybody was on side, everybody understood where we were going. And then we'd follow up across the country because we had locations in various provinces as well as in the US and in Shanghai.
And we spoke a little bit about this on another conversation, Joanne, but how has promotional merch been a component in your toolbox to help rally the team or get them behind a common cause or purpose?
It was a tool. Like, for example, at the sales conferences, we always provided a little something in their rooms when they arrived at the venue, whether it was a name brand, high-end piece of clothing like a hoodie, marked with our logo, and what the theme was, because we always had a theme annually with our sales conferences. And they grew to really appreciate those things because they were useful, they loved them, they acted as branding for our own company outside of Quadra. Let's say they wore something at one of our customers. Sometimes our customers would say, "Oh, can you get me one of those things?" And then our name, our Quadra name would be out there. But we'd also do cute little things. We did milestone anniversaries for our employees who had 5, 10, 15, 25 years of service. And depending on the year, they would get a little knickknack that would get bigger depending on the years of service. Or at the sales conference, we rewarded our top 3 product managers, and they would get these beautiful crystal awards. And they were so proud of them. It represented, hey, I'm special.
I have a question for you, Joanne.
Mm-hmm.
How is the process between yourself and the vendor supplying these gifts? Was it easy? Were they helpful? Or they were just, here's a crystal, whatever?
I was more involved in developing the theme, but I would help select what some of the awards were. but we had an actual marketing team that would be directly involved with the vendor. I don't recall any screaming or hair pulling. I think it all went quite smoothly.
Okay.
It's interesting because what my perspective, so just to give you an idea of how I think about this, Joanne. So I view you like if I'm a promotional products expert, as Lori said, which is very nice of her, and inaccurate, but you would be my client, and I'd be
Mhm.
like, "Ooh, what thing can I show you that maybe you'd like to buy?" And it's like the wrong mindset. And just to kind of come back to the values and what you were saying about that and people recognizing each other. Like you gave the example typically where like the outside salespeople think that they're a higher form of human than the inside sales support. Like fundamentally, they just think that, which is such a toxic base. And but they don't even really realize they're doing it, right? It's
Right?
just a behavioral norm. And then so I look at Lori and I look at Carlo. So Lori introduced Carlo as our resident storyteller. And I'm the sales guy. I'm talking to you. I need your revenue. My job's way harder than Carlos. He's just a freaking storyteller. But meanwhile, what I now know, having spent a few years working with Carlo, is that his stories make my job way more effective for clients like you.
Exactly.
So the
Exactly.
storyteller is vital
Mhm.
to my success. And
Mhm.
then we'll go to, the big brain Lori, who thinks she can design think at the emotional level, not
Yeah.
just the superficial, this is what it looks like
Yeah.
level.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the work of human resources is putting people together in proximity to each other to understand strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and create value for clients. And I'll give you just one quick HR example. So the other day we were reviewing a project plan, and the sales guy in me says, "Oh, we should get the client involved right now." And the design thinker's like, "No, that's not how we do it. That's not the process." And so instead of me just saying like, "No, I'm the sales guy. This is my client. We're going to do it this way," I had to back the train up into the station and apologize
Yeah.
for telling the expert, the resident design expert, here's how they should do their job. And in that moment, I'm like, oh, I think that might be what teamwork feels like.
Right. What, you're exactly right. And when we saw that happening, especially as we grew, we began to invite key people from each of the support groups to the sales conference. So from customer service, from logistics, we would invite one or two people, and then we would invite more and more. So they would see, because this every time there was a sales conference, it was a big event in the company. We spent lots of money, everybody was going, and they felt second class. They really did. We're
Yeah.
here holding the fort, speaking to customers, taking care of business while you're out gallivanting and having fun at the sales
Yeah.
conference. So we brought more and more of them. We invited more and more of them to the conferences so that they could see. And they also felt very honored to be there. The other thing that we did was with regards to the promotional items, we used to provide them to the sales and marketing team at the sales conferences in their rooms. We ordered later for everybody in the company. And then once
What a
we
smart
had,
move.
yeah, and then once we had, we would go around to each of the facilities to present what was presented at the sales conference to the support teams. We'd bring along the promotional items and give it to them as well. And
So that's best practice. Like, and that has even nothing to do with promotional products, guys, right? Like that just that's
one
team.
team, one team in. That's where, you're asking, how does HR get involved? That's how we got involved. We gave people a common ground in terms of acting, behaving through our core values, make sure everybody was on side, everybody understood where we were going. I was really blessed to be able to meet almost throughout my whole 25 years, every single employee, either a touch point through recruiting or training. So I got to know everybody. And what we realized was getting feedback. And our top sales guys, the really good ones that were really bringing in new customers and new business, they knew how to deal with our customer support team. They appreciated them, they involved them, they asked them questions. And we used that to say, we should be talking to these guys to develop our best practices. And how do they do it? And how do we generate this throughout the company so that our new salespeople of 1 to 5 years also realize that this is the way to do your absolute best, is by involving your team. And so we didn't do it in a vacuum. We were always out there. We were always on the road with our people, talking to them and asking them, what is it you're doing? How do you create that relationship between you and your customer service person? And we passed that on, and we developed that into training and into any communication that we had within the organization. We always talked about that.
That sounds like a really well-run company.
It is a very well-run company. And, a lot of it has to do with the fact it was private and you could get your arms around it. When I left 25 years later, it was a different company.
Sure.
It was a lot bigger, but we retained a lot of those practices to stay connected to people and to understand that it was really the people that were central, not the products, not anything else. It was the people.
Why do you think in a big corporation that is more public that this type of culture doesn't exist? Can it exist? Does it for some? What's your take on that?
Well, Abbott is, as you say, a public company. At the time that I was there, maybe things have changed now. It was very, very driven from the US. So we were treated, even though there were 2,500 employees here in Canada at the time, I don't know what they are now. They were treated as a sort of little satellite office. And so the values were always in conflict. We never, at the time I was there, we never connected. It was run very, very, very bureaucratically. HR was truly a cost center. This was a long time ago when, topics like employee engagement they weren't really developed at that time. So, there wasn't any of that, at least when I was there.
It's really interesting. I think the motivations, right, between a public and a private company and the demands that are put on the company from the street, for performance dictated a lot of that. But I think it's just, and thank God we're at where we're at, where the humanity of it is more important, because I still believe that you can have an aggressive workplace in terms of, desire to quote unquote win, but you can't have an aggressive workplace that puts your teammates at a disadvantage because you have some higher level form of ambition.
You're right. We were run by an entrepreneurial guy. He was absolutely driven in terms of what we were going to do, how we were going to get there. And you did not ask, when he was the expression, when somebody asks you to jump, you just, how high? And that was it. That's how and he treated us like that, but in a very caring way. But you never forgot who he was and what was expected of you. And that certainly was passed down. So it was driven. You never wanted to fail, but it wasn't aggressive. It wasn't negative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carlo, I want to come back to your process question. The three of us have talked a lot that we think the process maybe doesn't always start at the right place, right? It might start with the item, or a salesperson who wants to show a client like Joanne items because it might catch her fancy, as opposed to the process that you've always subscribed to, which is, what are you trying to achieve? What are the objectives that we need to realize? And so I wanted to come back to the process question, because I think there's something more there to pull on that thread with Joanne is if that process were to change and you were to be recommending to Joanne how it would change to make the whole thing even tighter, like where would you start with a client?
I would not start with product, first of all. I would
Yeah,
start with,
that's simple,
what
right?
are your goals? What are your, what do you need to communicate? That's the number one. And that's going to drive the type of product we're going to choose or the type of branding we're going to use.
I guess we think that often, and what we've seen in the space of promotional products is that people don't really realize the potential that
Yeah.
is there
Yeah.
for helping one obtain some objective. And if they're done as last minute or if they're not looked at, so we often talk like, the importance of taking one's time, to really, really plan and craft things so that
Mm-hmm.
when I get it, I care about it, that it will be used as a memento, or that when I
Yeah.
look at something, I remember the
Right.
feeling that we had. So it's like, how does all of that weave together?
Well, I think going back to what Carlos said, it's an expression we used to use when we used to try to identify our customers is blueprinting. And we would blueprint, what are your goals? What are your needs? If that resonated with the client, that you've done your homework to really try to understand what their needs are, what their pain points are, and that kind of thing, you open up a whole channel of wanting to deal with that individual because they're not just coming in to sell, a pen or something. They're really trying to get you and understand what your needs are. And these promotional products, for us, most of them were great hits. They became symbolic, tangible, and they did address an emotion. Also, one of our core values was having fun. We'd have competitions and things, and we would have a little promotional item associated to that.
Okay, so here's where I want to take this thing right off the rails. This Carlo tells me I get one rant. I think this might be it. So, having fun, Joanne.
Yeah.
A core value, having fun. So I love this term. I love this acronym, and Lori makes fun of me because I love acronyms. Um, Joanne, what does a PIP mean to you?
From HR, from an
Yep.
HR, it's a performance improvement plan.
Okay. Okay. Stop right there. As a core value,
Mm-hmm.
having fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to put you on a PIP,
Mm-hmm.
and I am going to have fun doing it.
No, you're not.
Ah, but what if a PIP wasn't negative or reactionary? What if a PIP was proactive? And it wasn't a performance improvement plan, it was a personalized improvement plan. And when I came into the company,
I like that.
okay, so here's now watch how I pivot to being a tchotchke salesperson.
Okay.
I'm a regional sales manager, and I'm having some trouble with some of the performance of some people on my team because we've had a very successful couple of quarters and we're getting a little fat, dumb, and happy.
Yep.
And I want to point out to a few people on the team in a fun way, because we're having fun. That's part of the values. As part of the PIP, I'm going to start referring to a few of these people as coasters.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to get a set of these little paper, these are inexpensive little paper coasters. And it might have a message on it that isn't that, it's not mean. I'm not degrading people. I'm just being like, hey, if you got a set of these coasters, you probably need to focus a little bit more. You might need, so now that's an HR train wreck waiting to happen, probably. But what I'm trying to get at is these mementos, those little pieces of crystal, the Inukshuk, not everything's positive and not everything is rosy and a great emotion, but these are tools,
Yeah.
these little things are tools to change human behavior,
Mm-hmm.
but to do it in alignment with the values. And so
Yeah.
no one wants to be called a coaster, but
Right.
no one also wants to sit in a PIP meeting with their boss. And
Yeah.
so how can we kind of change the conversation and essentially the economic value or the perception of what these things are as tools? So there you go.
What I would do is, if you wanted to use that little coaster thing as an example, I wouldn't give it to the employee. This is a serious discussion. It's going to remain a serious discussion. Where our challenges have always been is with our managers. The majority of the managers have been promoted from a sales function into management. So we've had to throw at them a lot of training to withdraw from the sales role and become a manager. Not easy to do. And part of the problem we had a highly engaged team. There were few poor performers on our team, but we tried to address the poor performance quickly through our managers with some support from HR. And if those things were provided to the manager in terms of clues or ideas or points that they could cover in a performance improvement plan or a personal development plan that you call it, I think addressing it to them versus the employee, to me, sending it to the employee is frivolous, but to the manager as a useful tool to say, these are some of the things that you need to cover.
That's a really great perspective because, and it may sound like pretty trivial to Lori and Carlo, but in my experience, here's my job and how I engage with you. Hi, Joanne. I haven't talked to you in a while. I just got back from Las Vegas, the big tchotchke show, and I found some new things and I'd love to come in and show you. And I expect on the other end of that, you're like, I don't have time for this stuff. I don't need tchotchkes. I need my managers to be able to rise up to the level that we need them to do. And if you have tools that can help me do that, I'd love for you, Jamie, to come in.
Yeah.
Otherwise, yeah, you're nice. I like you, but you can't help me in my job to be done. That to me is a like transition of understanding where I always felt my job was, I got to go visit HR and show them the new crystal stuff. But I never had the process discipline that Carlo has, and I didn't have the design thinking or the courage to be able to put myself in your shoes because my job was to see if you would buy some crystal. And the whole thing is just ass backwards.
Yep. Yeah. And that goes back to blueprinting again and understanding what is it that your customer or your client needs and where are his pain points and how can you help in an authentic way where, your experience will bring them something other than just a pen.
Just going back also on this conversation, what you were saying, like Jamie was thinking, because I think in branding, often as an agency, which is what we do, we come up with ideas. Oh, this would be a cool idea, like the coaster idea,
Right.
because it's smart and it's clever and we think it's
Right.
going to work. And it was really interesting because right away from your HR brain, you were like, no, it's not going to work that way. So, but it's very cool because often building a team between the agency, the promotional products agency, and the client, that we ask the right questions and that we see the answer is through that conversation because often we think something in isolation. So do you feel the process between your supplier and you could have been improved? What could we have done better to get to your goals better?
It's a difficult question, honestly, for me to answer, Lori, because I was not directly involved with the suppliers of the promotional items. But what I would recommend first is that you research that that you have the right people in the group, that you're talking to the right people. So you're not just talking to the transactional person who's making the purchase of the hoodie or whatever. You're talking to the people that are deciding on the theme of the conference. And then you can get into, what are your needs? What do you want to reflect? What are the pain points and those kinds of things? Making sure you've got the right people in the room.
And I get that. And we've talked about that often, is that is the problem in our industry, that we're not getting in the room at the right time. Because often the perception of this industry, of the promo space, is not one that adds any value at that point of ideation. For me as an agency in branding and marketing and creating, we always got in the room at the right time. And that's
Yeah.
why we at the Fabulist have merged our mindsets, where Carlo from, photography and stuff knows, my industry well as well, which was branding and creating campaigns for companies. So we worked at a really high level. In the promotional space, that didn't happen. And we saw here, there is an opportunity here that doesn't exist in this space, where the marketing that happens even on the promotional tchotchke level can be so powerful
Yeah,
if developed in the right space and circumstances when that conversation is happening, that
exactly.
creation,
Yeah,
to what you're saying. So yes,
right.
it's like getting in the room at the right time.
Yeah, and you're going to have to deal with gatekeepers and those
Yeah.
transactional people that are just interested in they're being told from our marketing team who come up with the themes to go out and source hoodies or whatever it is, or crystals or whatever. The decision's been made at that point.
I find that the challenge is that often the perception and the interest to get us in the room before is not seen as something that our industry can add value.
So if you represent above the line, it's all where all the planning and the branding and the advertising, that's all where all the smart, people I get to hang out, and the creative people. And then I get to wait below the line in the long tail as a vendor to get the call of, hey, I need a quote for 500 hoodies. And then I go fetch the quote like everybody else goes and fetches the quote. And that's not like super rewarding. It's
Right.
also not in alignment a lot of times, because marketing, they think one way, and let's say HR is really the stakeholder. They're thinking something entirely different. And then procurement just sits there and is like, hey, I picked a vendor that works for HR, works for marketing, all of our stakeholders seem to be happy. We're all good. But in reality, what they don't know is that me, and this is just what I've learned in this moment, is if I have a relationship with the HR team and I approach it from understanding of what are you guys trying to accomplish, but then I meet them where they are, not my process, and I say, hey, Joanne, it's Q1. I'd love to see if we could get an hour on the calendar to come blueprint a few things.
Yep.
And now I know blueprinting to Joanne is a strategy conversation
Mm-hmm.
around goals and objectives. And it's not, hey, I just got back from the Vegas show and transactionally I've got a whole bunch of new crystal stuff.
Yeah.
And so I think that idea, Lori, of like you always get in the blueprinting phase.
Right. If we're looking to see where the breakdown is it that we're not getting in the space of that ideation, or is it HR also, in many instances, maybe in your company, because it had a particular culture, Joanne, you had merged your teams and you got in the conversation at marketing when they're saying, we're doing this event, we're going to think about these cool ideas, and here's what we're going to do. But maybe, how involved is HR in those decisions?
Because they want to be more intentional about these decisions on promotional items, it's a smart idea to get HR involved. If they're linked, if HR is linked to employee engagement and goals and objectives and things like that, they are going to get HR involved.
What you said before about the fact that you knew every employee,
Yeah.
I think companies, they are missing such a huge opportunity by not getting HR involved, because HR knows their people.
Right.
Some of them
They
do.
know
Some
what
do,
they know what their pressure points are. They know what would resonate with them, and not having that teamwork between HR and marketing is a huge mistake.
If you were to identify your market,
Yeah.
what I would do if I were in your area, I would determine who are the companies that are best practices, that have good scores regarding employee engagement. There's all kinds of employee engagement surveys that are very, very, very good. And you could start your list like that, because not all companies believe in HR. It's still the case, unfortunately, today. The
Yeah.
companies that are best practices that's why they are, because they believe in their employees. So I would start with that and determine who's worth calling. From there, determine who are the decision makers in the company that get involved in the promo stuff.
That's awesome advice. Figure out who's worth calling.
Yeah.
Like that's a great sales tidbit. But one thing as a salesperson, can I request a part 2 of this conversation? Because I know we're up against a time limit right here, but
Mhm.
you used a very loaded word to describe how people feel when they receive something like this, right? And that's pride.
Yeah.
And DEI and marketing has found a way to wreck that word or to redefine it as to something else and now pull it back and say, no, we don't do pride anymore.
Mm.
And so my instilled pride, is that different than my LGBTQ plus pride?
Oh, right.
And so from an HR perspective, I mean, maybe we could do a part 2.
Sure. Anytime.
Because when you say I give this to someone and there's pride involved, does that mean I can no longer put a rainbow on it anymore because that's not okay? And that would be, frivolous. So I think that maybe food for thought, but this has been awesome. Thank you.
It was a pleasure. It was a lot of fun. Thank you so much. It was good talking to all of you.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks for joining us. So that's a wrap for today. Thank you again, Joanne, for joining us and sharing your insights into what has turned out to be a very complex space known as human resources, aka HR. To everyone out there listening, thank you and have a fabulous month. Until next time.